Previously, I'd built 3 raised beds and I'd just put together the large 3 meter by 3 meter bed for the rhubarb. It's time to locate it properly and connect the pieces together. Now I can mulch the paths around this bed using the wood chips in the tarpaulin. Then I can fill the bed and put the rhubarb in. Filling around this bed is easy because I've already got the compost here. Don't have to carry it. Once I've got rid of these wood chips, I can fill the bed. Right, I've dug a trench along the bed with the rose and all along the rhubarb bed to fill it. So I've gone down about 25 centimetres and, ouch, sorry, the rose has just got me. I've managed to get a decent amount out of this. It's not going to completely fill the bed, but then I don't need it completely filled. But I've gone about as far as I can go because, as you can see by the colour, down to the hard clay. So I've dug as much good soil as I can, put into the rhubarb bed. This is the second pot of roots, mostly bindweed roots, but there's also dandelion, nettles, etc. It's not a small pot. That's my size 8 boot next to it, so you can see it's not a small pot. And look at the size of that. Compare that to my hand. That is a nettle root I dug up. Obviously the rest of it is still down there, but dug up as much as I could. So I've got a fair bit. So tomorrow I can come in. I've got to backfill this piece with wood chips, and then I can now plant into these 2 beds. So I'll just fill this with a bit of mulch. This one's been mulched. That one I will plant a couple of things in there, and I'm going to transplant some rhubarb into there and backfill this with wood chips, and that will be tomorrow's job because I ran out of time for today. But yeah, I'm happy with that. Okay, slight change of plan. I've decided that I'm going to stay another hour, so I'm going to fill this trench with wood chips. That's what we're doing. Fill wood chips, and let's see how far the weed has been full. We'll go. Probably not very far. I had a cunning plan because wood chips will settle quickly and I need to refill it. And then I remembered I got these logs that I was going to use as mushroom logs, but they weren't suitable. So I was going to possibly put them around the wildlife pond, but they'll do the job because obviously they will rot down, but they'll take a lot longer. And they fill most of that trench. Of course, I only thought about it after I filled half the trench, but that's okay. I can dig this stuff up and put it on top of that and then put the other logs here. So just using what I've already got on the plot rather than make trips after trip to go and fetch wood chips. So that'll save me a little bit of time. But I think that will be a job for tomorrow because I'm running out of time again, and I really do have to go this time because I'm getting tired and hungry, and I think I've done enough for today. It's an absolutely beautiful day, and I've got to fill this trench. So I've put these 2 logs in yesterday. So what I'm going to do is put these wood chips on top of that, and then I've got those other logs on top of this bag. So some of these, not all of them, but some of them will go in and fill in that hole between where these logs are and the lid of that wheelie bin for wood chips. So a bit of a little job for today, but that'll keep me quiet for a bit. Okay, I'll put the logs in. That bit's covered up, so that's how it'll look when it's covered up. Just finish that off and level it off later. But yeah, no more enjoying the bird song now, so I'll tidy that up and get back to you. Right, that's the path wood chipped. Obviously I've got to build the beds on that side, but all the logs are in, the trench is filled and wood chipped. And then when I do the beds on the other side, I'll fill in this edge along here with wood chips as well, but I've got to build those beds first. So the next job is to fill the beds. We've got one 3 meter by 3 meter bed, which is going to be rhubarb. One 1.5 meter by 3 meter bed where the roses are. I think I'm going to put artichoke next to it, a globe artichoke, and some foxgloves and things, flowers and things. So that's going to be a perennial bed. Then that will be a bean bed, but not this year. And the final bed, or the first bed if you come through the door, will be a permanent squash and pumpkin bed. So now I've got to fill them. Now I've got another 2 bags of the semi-composted privet cuttings, and this one, and I think this has got a few other bits and pieces in it, but it's half rotted. And then I've got these triple bin of compost. Amazingly, an onion. It must have been in the compost, and it's decided to grow. Unfortunately, it'll have to be dug up when I need the compost. I mean, it's rough at the top because I just kept putting stuff on top. So the layers underneath will be more rotted down, the older layers. And the stuff at the top was the stuff I put in sort of end of October, November. So that will be used as mulch, and what's underneath will be used as compost. So now I've got to fill all this lot. Now I will add actual fertilizers and manure and fish blood and bone and things later, but I'm going to be adding some things for the soil structure for now. I've got this bag of crushed, sort of roughly crushed eggshells that will add structure and a bit of minerals. I've got bags of this. It was supposed to be rock dust. It's gypsum that somebody was giving away, so I got a few bags of it, and it's more like gravel than rock dust, which it was supposed to be, but it will do. And even if it aids drainage, I'll be happy with that. And then somebody brought in a load of bags of compost, and it had a lot of these clay pellets in it, so I've got a few bags of that as well. Now I'm not going to put that in every bed, but the pumpkin bed, pumpkins do like good drainage, so I will add some of that. Right, I'm going to start with this bed, which is going to be the permanent pumpkin and squash bed. Now the way it's going to work is they're going to be pumpkins and squashes on hills in stations along this edge and along that edge. So they will go this way and that way. So they will go a little bit into that bed, and there will be a bean trellis on that half of that bed. So they'll go into that bed a little bit. And then once they're done, it will be field beans the rest of the year over winter. So both of these will be field beans over winter, but not for now. So what I'm going to do is actually ridge up some soil. As I've built those beds and dug up the path, I saved some of the soil in pots here, and then I'm going to use that to make 2 shallow ridges along the sides. And then the centre can be compost and things, because if I fill the whole thing with compost, it will sink. Pumpkins and squashes do better when they're well above the normal ground level, so if they're on a hill, they do better. So if I put soil along here and then compost around it, the soil won't compress down as much as the compost will, so it will stay up there, and it will keep the roots of the plants above the wet soil level. Now I bet you're thinking, okay, clever clerks, you build this bed with a pipe, but there's that hole where things can go down and weeds can grow in. But I have a cunning plan. I have these clay balls, which have got just a little bit of compost in. So if I sift out the compost, then I can fill this hole with the clay balls, and because of the depth of it, I doubt any seedlings will get in there, and if any seeds get blown in there, they've got to go through 15 centimeters of clay balls, so I don't think that is going to be a problem. If anything is hard enough, like dandelion and things, well, I can just harvest those anyway. Right, well, that should stop anything going through. I mean, if a seed lands in there, it's got no chance of rooting. Eventually, in a few years, enough dust and muck will accumulate in there, but that's a few years down the line, so I'm not worried about it. Okay, now that I've filled the edges, I can start adding these soil amendments, starting with the eggshells. I'm not too fussy about how much eggshells I put on, because it really doesn't matter. So they can go on fairly thickly, and so obviously they will add things like calcium and minerals, but they will break down slowly, and that will act as a sort of slow release fertiliser. And I will be adding some seaweed later when I plant the pumpkins. The seaweed will go straight into the planting holes. I'm adding some of this gypsum, which is supposed to help clay soil, but this is more like gravel, so I'll put it on fairly thickly. So now it's time to ridge up and put some of that soil from around it on the path, and I put some in the bed and I put some in the pots. So all the ridges, and it doesn't matter well, I deliberately want the centre to be a little bit lower, and then I can fill that with compost and things, and as the plants grow they'll root into it anyway. Okay, I've actually dug the centre of this bed, put it to the sides. I think that's enough for this one. It will settle down a bit, but it's good enough, and the clumps will break up because we're in beginning of March, and I'm not going to be using this till June, so we've got time for the elements to break up the clumps anyway. And pumpkins and squash like airy soil anyway, so that doesn't matter if there's a few gaps. It's not like cabbages that need really firm soil. So I've dug about a good 20 centimetres in, put that to the sides with a bit of what I had saved. So the edges are a little bit higher. So now I've got to fill the centre with some of the semi-composted stuff, because people grow pumpkins and squashes on compost heaps. So I'm not going to put compost in this because I've got a limited amount of compost, and squashes and pumpkins are happy sitting around on top of composting material. So I'm going to put the stuff that's semi-composted on this bed. Right, that's that bed filled and mulched, and I used both of those builder's bags full of compost, well not compost, semi-rotten compost. So that's that bed over and done with till June, when I plant the squashes and pumpkins into it. Until then, that bed is done. The next bed has got the 2 bags in. I mulched that the other day, so that's ready. I will add some more into it as I go along. So now it's time to do the bed with the roses in. Now this artichoke obviously died back for the winter, but he's coming back. He's got some green in it, as you can see. And this foxglove that is in a pot next to it is fine, but this other artichoke that I put in a pot doesn't seem to show any sign of life. So I'm wondering whether to wait till it's actually shows some sign of life, because there's nothing coming out of it. It should be coming back, but it all looks dead. So rather than waste time transplanting something that is dead, I'll wait to see if it comes back to life, and then I can deal with it. Because if it's dead, it's dead. Because it was going to go here next to these roses, but I'll not plant it till it's got some sign of life. And if it's dead, I'll put something else here. This bed, all it needs is a bit of mulch, because if I'm not going to plant that in today, I might as well just mulch it and forget about it. Thing is, I'm going out of mulch at a fair old rate, so I'll have to use some of what's on the top of this compost heap to mulch that bed. Whew. Of course, next door but one is having a bonfire, so there's all smoke coming this way, so if I cough and choke, it's because of that. But it's going all over the place. Right, so rhubarb bed.